And so the obvious question that comes up at a time like this is like, well, yeah, but like, he's Moses, right? And I'm not trying to boost him up here. It's just a metaphor, but he's Moses. Like, they're my leaders. Pastor Stephen and Katie, they're my leaders. I don't want to circumvent authority. You know, I don't want to take more authority than I've been given. So like, how do I know what I'm allowed to do? Now, you may have heard this. This is something we talk about a lot in our coaching. I think Pastor Stephen said he's used some of this. So some of you may have seen this before. But how do I know what I have authority to do? What decisions I have authority to make without getting extra permission to make it? Okay? I'm going to give you a simple illustration that I think is just transformational. And I'm not an artist. You've already seen that. But I'm going to go ahead right here, and I'm drawing a boat. Okay? That's a boat. I know some of you are like, what is that? No, that's a boat. All right? And then this is the water line. Okay? Here's what you have to decide. Some of you are very familiar with this illustration already. Here's what you have to decide. I think as a leader in your church, I'm going to speak for your pastor. As a pastor myself, I am comfortable with my team of leaders making any decision in the church that's above the water line. And here's why that illustration matters. If it's above the water line and it punches a hole through the side of the boat, we're not taking on water. Nothing bad is happening. We're not losing money. We're not losing people. It didn't change the structure of our church. It's above the water line. Let me give you a few examples in our church. I'm not going to speak to yours because as soon as I do that, and I've done this before, I'll step on somebody's pet project and somebody's pet ministry, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to talk about ours, okay? An above the water line decision is the font on the screen on Sundays. I don't really care. Pastor Stephen may care a lot about font and font size. And like if it kernels, and I don't even know what kernel means, but one of my graphics guys told me that's a big deal. And if it's italicized and if it's bolded, I don't really care. If it's readable, I don't care, right? So that's an above the water line. I don't need my media graphics guy walking up to me on Sunday morning and go, hey, do you want us to use Arial Black or Helvetica News today? Just make the decision. You're a leader. It's above the water line. I don't care, right? I don't care what kind of vacuum cleaner we vacuum the auditorium with. So if somebody's responsible for managing that budget and the vacuum cleaner dies and we got to buy a new vacuum, I don't need them going, hey, do you want us to go with the Swiffer thing or do you want us to go with the Shark Tiger thing or what? I don't know. Just, you got budget money, go choose whatever the best one is for that. It's above the water line. I don't care. But there are some decisions that are below the water line. So I probably need to be aware because if this goes bad, we lose money, we lose people, or our structure is immediately impacted by that decision. It's like, hey, we're going to host a wedding for a same-sex couple Saturday at the church. What? What are we doing? Yeah, we've already agreed. They already paid the deposit, and we're going to do the thing and whatever. Okay, whoa, can we back? Well, they've paid a non-refundable deposit. We can't get out of it. That's not the first time I need to hear about that. Right? Right? Yeah. You're exactly right. We haven't done that. Or the staff member that did not accompany me on this trip. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm totally kidding. But the idea being that, like, there are some things. It's like, hey, if Trevor came to me as a student pastor and says, hey, listen, I think our ministry is going to grow this year by 7,000%. I think that's attainable. I've got faith. So I ordered $28,000 worth of t-shirts for the fall retreat. You did what? We just lost money. I need to know about that. Because that $28,000 impacts some of the other things that we have the ability to do in ministry. It's below the waterline. And so you're like, okay, well, that makes sense. Like, I get it. I hear what you're saying. I hear where you're coming from. But how do I know? The more you know the sunset, the easier it is to decide. Because I can make decisions. You could come to my church and make some decisions that are above the waterline, but at the house, they're below the waterline because it doesn't fit in the vision here. And vice versa. There's decisions that you're allowed to make here, but I would want buy-in on. I wouldn't want you to just kind of bounce it off of me before we sign the purchase order. The clearer you know the vision, the clearer you know what the sunset looks like here, the easier it is to make this decision. And I would say what I said a few minutes ago. If you're not sure, ask. Because Pastor Stephen would rather say 2 or 3 times to you, what do you think? Well, let me tell you what I would have done. Let me tell you how I would have handled that. Let me tell you why I would have made that decision. And he helps you know that decision and where that fits 2 or 3 times early on, than for you just to assume that you kind of know, and then you make a really, really bad mistake. But I wrote this down. I bolded it this morning to make sure I didn't miss it. Don't let fear of making a mistake keep you from making a decision. Don't let fear of making a mistake keep you from making a decision. You're a leader. Lead. And honestly, unless it is catastrophic, even a decision that's below the waterline, if your heart is in the right place, your heart is for the house, and your heart is for reaching people and fulfilling the vision here, and just helping people find life in Jesus Christ and experience the fullness of life in Him. Like, if your heart's in the right place, even if you make a mistake, Pastor Stephen's not going to kill you, right? He's going to come in and try to help you, and hey, here's why I would have done this differently. Here's why we didn't have $28,000 for t-shirts. Here's what you didn't know, right? He'll help make that decision. He'll help walk that back for you. And then the next time, I promise you'll think more clearly. And this is what we're going to talk about in just a minute. But here's what I want to know. I want you to know. And this is so important. Write this down, okay? I haven't told you that yet. Write this down. You don't have to make the decision that Pastor Stephen would make, but you have to make the decision for the same reason that Pastor Stephen would make it. I'm going to say that again because I know you're writing and you may not fully understand why that's important. You don't have to make the same decision that Pastor Stephen would make, but you have to make the decision for the same reason that Pastor Stephen would make it. The reason is that you are going to make some decisions differently than Pastor Stephen because you're gifted in different ways. God speaks through you in different ways. He's working through you. You're leading in different ways. You're actually closer to the action in your area of ministry. There are things about media that you know that Pastor Stephen probably he's not really aware of because he's leading in some other areas. He's doing other things. So there are some decisions that you would make that might be different. If you came to him and said, hey, I've got 4 things we need to buy. There's a new microphone, whatever. We need to buy this. He might choose a different microphone than you would. But if you're making it for the same reason, then it doesn't really matter that the decision is different. The reason being that if you're making it for the same reason, it means you have the same heart. You have the same motivation. You're processing, you're filtering things through the same sunset. It's like, I'm making this decision because I think Pastor Stephen or Katie, they would make this decision too, or similar to it, because it's based on this heart, this rationale, this motivation. In every area of life, those are some filters. Why am I making this decision? I'm making this decision because of this motivation, right? If my motives are in the right place, we can always fix mistakes. But if my motives are in the wrong place, the mistake is not the issue. My heart is the issue. So if my heart is here, if my heart's for the house, if my heart is for the vision of this place, the sunset that God has given to our Moses, our leader, then I don't have to make the same decision that he would make if he was making this decision, but I got to make it for the same reason that he would make it. All right? Questions? Thoughts? I'm going to give you a second here. I'm not taking a break yet, but just before we do something else, any questions, thoughts, comments, something that stands out, something you want to clarify? If our motive is in the right place, then we can walk anything back. We can fix any mistake. But if our motives are in the wrong place, the mistake wasn't the issue. Our heart is the issue. You're welcome. Anybody else? Yeah, Devin. Yeah. Here's a couple things that I would say. One, you have to constantly be building relationships with the right kind of people who help connect you to the right kind of people. So the best way to recruit new student leaders is through your existing student leaders. And it takes a little while to get to that place, but like once you've got 1 or 2 or 5 of the right leaders, they know people like them that need to be serving with them. And so, but you still need to be the one to recruit them. So I know this is not the case, but like if you have a student leader, what's your name? Okay, if Sherry's your student leader, and Sherry's the right kind of leader, and Sherry knows Sydney. You don't know Sydney yet, or maybe you do, but you're not sure if Sydney's the right kind of student leader because you're still unsure about who Sydney is. And I got. But Sherry says, listen, Sydney's awesome. Then you need to be the one to go to Sydney and say, hey, listen, would you just come hang out? I don't know when you do students. Would you come hang out with us on Wednesday night, Sunday morning, whatever? Would you come just hang out and kind of shadow Sherry? Just hang next to Sherry one Sunday morning in our student thing and just kind of see if you like it, see how it goes. And that's the place that I would start. I really would. Other questions, thoughts? All right, good stuff. I taught a 7th grade Sunday school class like this one time that didn't like to talk either. I'll call on you in a minute. We talked about authority. You're a leader. Yeah, go ahead. Back. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because you videoed. Yep, go ahead.
We're on the welcome mat, so we're the greeters. What if somebody's wanting to be a part of your group, but their temperament isn't very welcoming?
Yeah.
Or they're not always appropriate when they talk to someone. How would you?
Two answers to that question. We all have that trouble. So
Okay.
you got somebody that wants to greet, but they're not friendly. Like, they're going to run people away from your church. And that may not be what you're talking about, but that's what we've had. Or you're just not sure it's the right fit. Maybe it's a worship thing. They want to serve in worship, but they have no worship giftings at all. One of the easiest places to, and this is not your question, but I'm going to say this, because one of the easiest places to push a worship person not gifted for worship is to the media team if you have presented the vision that media is an extension of worship. They're still leading worship, they're just doing it from the computer or the soundboard, right? Or they're leading worship in our kids' environment or our student environment and developing the gifts to where we feel like that they're able to do that now on Sundays or whatever the other environment. Here's what I would say. One, if you have relationship, like you really have a relationship with that person, it requires a hard conversation. And those are hard. We'll talk about those in a minute. They're called hard conversations because they're hard. But to say to somebody, Trevor, I know you want to be a greeter, but I got to be honest, like, you're very abrasive. You know, or man, your temperament is just not, it just doesn't work. People are offended by you. You tell jokes that aren't funny, or they're inappropriate for church, or whatever that is. So it's a hard conversation. If you don't know the person, then I would redirect them towards another place of ministry that they desire to be used, like that they could be used, and say, hey, right now, you know, and square peg, round hole, but right now, we don't have a need specifically that match your gifts, but I know there's a need in media. Or let me check with, you know, student ministry. They may have a need in media in student ministry. Or what, and so you can just kind of redirect that. Trevor, you were going to say something? You want him to use the mic? Hold on, we got to use the mic. Their video, just so it's captured. Grab a drink while you talk.
We've got a lady who serves in our guest services area who you could say not the friendliest person at our church, but she wants to be a part. She wants to serve. She wants to be a part of what we're doing. And so I moved her from like greeter to coffee. And she makes coffee on Sunday morning because she still gets to be a part, but she's not interacting with people because when she interacts with people, people aren't that happy because she's just kind of mean sometimes, if we're totally honest. But I think like ultimately what I've always realized is that people, if you are willing to have that tough conversation with them and move them to a spot that they may not right now think's the best spot for them, ultimately they're going to be more happy.
Yeah.
They're going to be more happy serving somewhere that really is using their gifts than I'm going to stand at the door and kind of be grumpy and say good morning to people versus, hey, we're going to put you somewhere else and let you serve and really use your gifts. But it just takes having that hard conversation.
That lady he's talking about, one Sunday, I was just happened to stand near where she was greeting people at the door before we moved her. And somebody walked up and said, hey, it's a great Sunday, isn't it? And she was like, is it? She didn't mean it as rude as it came across. I'd already heard her talking to some other people about how they had a rough day, and she wasn't sure how this day was going to turn out. Like, if it finishes like it started, it's going to be rough. And so she just asked that question, is it? But the way it came off was like, I hate you. That's really how it came across. And so pretty quickly after that, we moved her to coffee, is really what we did. Because if she's interacting with coffee, she can't offend them. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned needing to know what the other churches have to offer. You mentioned that someone was like, I want something really traditional. What's the line to where, like, even though they say that, and you might know of the church, you still are like, I think you want traditional, but you need to come here. So how do you, like, balance?
Well,
not still trying to get
sure. No. I think I always want people to come to my church. Like, I'm not saying don't want people here. You want people here, and you love it because you love it, and you believe their life can be transformed. But if at some point they've already visited, they've already come, or they just say, I think I know what your church is about, and they're pushing towards something else, then I just use kind of the discernment, the wisdom of the Holy Spirit to say, okay, God, then I want to offer them something else, because it would be more important for me that they be in church than that they be in my church. You know, so I think it's just a sensitivity there. But absolutely, you just keep inviting them, that want them to come here. But if it's like, I don't really like it, I thought your church would be more fill in the blank, whatever. It's like, hey, well, you know what you need to check out? Check out First Baptist or Methodist, whatever, the thing down there, the Six Flags Over Jesus. What was that church over there a minute ago? What was that? The Cross? Oh yeah, that place is huge. I didn't know what that was. So hey, you know, go to that church. Maybe that'll be more what you're looking for. So just you stay sensitive to like what God may be saying in that moment about what they're looking for. Yeah. Here's the other thing that I would say about that specifically. And Trevor, if I'm wrong, I give you permission right now to say that's absolutely not true. You're a liar. I promise. I'll still fly home with you. I promise. I've never, ever, from the stage or in public environments, public settings, ever badmouthed another church in our community. Ever. It's a conviction of mine. Because I don't believe it's my job as the ear in the body of Christ to chop off my foot. I don't believe that's my job. If there's a church that it's false teaching, it's sin, and it needs a public acknowledgement to my people because I'm caring for my flock, my sheep, then maybe there's a need for some of that to take place. Instead, what you get from me almost all the time is we're praying for new churches as they launch in our community on Sunday. Hey, Thrive Chapel's launching this Sunday. We've given them resources. We let them borrow our chairs. They launch today. We're going to pray for them that they be lifted up. On Easter Sunday, we're praying for other churches in our volunteer huddles. Hey, let God be lifted up in every church in this community today. Every church breaks an attendance record. Every church has new salvation records because we're going to do that. And as leaders in this church, whether you take the stage ever or not, your words matter. Your words matter. And if anybody on your team hears you bad-mouthing Six Flags Over Jesus down there, or bad-mouthing First Baptist or the Methodist or the what, and I don't know your churches. Maybe all of them are crazy, all right? But if they hear you doing that, they think that's what this house is about. That's what they think. They think that's how Pastor Stephen feels, how Katie feels. They think, oh, well, this church only exists for itself, and they think every other church is going to hell if they hear you saying it. So you got to make sure that what you're saying is building up the body of Christ and not tearing it down. Because here's the other thing that people assume. If you're bad-mouthing somebody else or some other church, they assume that even though they're in your presence now, when they leave your presence, you're talking that way about them. If you don't have enough character not to talk bad about people while they're standing there, they assume when they leave you, you're talking about them like that. And so you got to make sure that as a leader, the expectations that are put on you, that you meet those. Every time you go up in leadership, okay, forget the water. This is not mixed metaphors here, okay? It just it overran there. But every time, so you start out as a leader down here. You start day one of leadership at the house. There's a lot of room for you to make mistakes. There's a lot of room for you to say things you probably shouldn't have said. There's a lot of room for you not to know what you're supposed to do. The more you go up in leadership, the less room there is for you to make mistakes. And I'm not talking about making honest mistakes. I'm talking about like just doing stuff you know is stupid. Don't do dumb. That's our motto. Don't do dumb. Okay? The farther you go up, the more it comes in, the more restrictive some of those expectations are. And here's what I would say, and I failed miserably at this 2 Sundays ago at our church, or 3 Sundays ago. As the leader, I have lost the right to be emotionally unstable in public. As the leader, I have lost the right to be emotionally unstable in public. People value stability in leadership. I'm not talking about being fake. I'm talking about get your crap together. That I've lost the right as a leader to be emotionally unstable in public. You need a safe place to vent. You need to have a counselor or a spouse or a best friend or your car or your voice memo on your phone to scream into in your closet. But in public, you're leading up here. People need to know that you can be trusted. And emotional instability does not breed trust. You got to make sure that you're a stable, calming presence for the people that you're leading. I've lost the right to be emotionally unstable in public. All right? So we talked about you got authority. You've been given permission to lead. All right? Any other questions before we move on to something? Yeah. Is that a Tennessee
No, Texas.
Texas. All right, never mind.
Sorry, bro. We're
All right,
on the
go
other
ahead.
side. Me and my wife just recently took over being over all the life group leaders.
Yep.
And so we're just wondering, how often should we meet with the group
Meet with
within
the
the
life
quarter?
group
Yeah,
leaders?
with all the leaders, like per the quarter of
Yeah.
when the life group's starting.
That's different everywhere. It depends on the number. So I'll tell you where the guy that's over our life groups, what he's trying to institute right now is the Moses capable men and women. You've selected the men and women and the leaders in the 50s and hundreds and thousands. But it could be that some of them are coaches now of 3 or 4 groups under them, so that they help multiply that. Because I don't know how many groups you have and how that ministry is expanding. But here's what I would say: you need to meet with them as often as you would want to be met with. Like, you need to make sure that they are equipped to do what you need them to do. If they get to the end of the semester of life groups, or however you do it, and they aren't doing what you wanted them to do, but you didn't resource them and equip them to do it, it's your fault, not theirs. So you need to make sure that you meet with them as often as it takes to get everything to them for them to feel successful. And for you to feel like it's as if I'm leading their group, because they know as much as I know about how to lead their group. They have the resources, they're equipped. And that takes a time. I'm not saying like day one, you got to go meet with everybody for 12 hours every day right now. But take the long view and go, we're going to take this semester to invest in our leaders. And so I need to, I have no idea your jobs or your schedule. I need to meet with them once a week, once a month. We need to gather. It's more productive to meet with everybody once a month than it is for me to try to have 8 coffees a month. So just try to figure out what's the best use of my time and their time. Our life group guy, was watching it yesterday in the airport. He made training videos and put them privately on a playlist on YouTube and sent all of them the link. Here's how you enter attendance on the back end of Planning Center. Here's how you change the descriptions of your group. Here's how you add pictures. So that instead of getting them in the room and everybody open your laptop or your phone and let's do all this, he sent it to them and he said, hey, the deadline for you to do this is Thursday. And if you have questions, call me. And then they could do it at their own pace on their own time. And then he could hold them accountable because he knew everybody got it. He knew everybody had seen the videos because he could watch or whatever. And then they could follow up. If they didn't follow up, that's on them. And then he gave enough of a buffer there to make sure it was done in the time he needed it. Does that make sense? That was a long answer. Any other questions? Yeah, Nick.
So you kind of talk about, obviously we're not bad mouthing other churches. This is a good thing. But how often would you say, like, getting to know the other churches to say, hey, okay, so you're looking for this experience, maybe you should go here. How often are you meeting with leadership in other churches? Or is it something that you just kind of like call, hey, blah, or are you actually going to hang out with them? And, how much are you like throwing against, just like what are you trying to figure out? What are you trying to glean from them? That kind of thing.
It's both and. I mean, I've been in my community long enough to know the reputation of a lot of the churches. So I can't tell you I know every church. I can tell you I probably know like 6 or 8, but I feel like I've got a breadth of knowledge to say this is this kind of church, this is this kind of church. And I'm not kidding. 3 months ago or so, well, it was longer than that, August. So what is that? 5, 6 months ago, we did a very clarifying series about our vision. And I said from the stage 2 Sundays in a row, this is who we are. I've tried to be as plain and as obvious and as clear as I could. This is who we are. And today, some of you hear that and then this is not the place for me. And we bless you as you go find another church. And if you're looking for a church, we'll help you find it. If I can, I'll help you set up coffee with the pastor. And I had somebody come to me in the lobby and say, hey, I love you. I love this place. But if that's who you are, then our season here is up. And we don't know where to go. Where's a church kind of like this, but it's like who we were 3 months ago? And so I said, hey, let me try to help you, but I don't know. Let me think around, pray around. I called 2 pastor friends of mine, told them a little bit of what this couple was describing. Obviously, both of them were like, hey, I'll meet them for coffee. What do you want me to do, And I referred that couple to both of those pastors. And I just said, hey, my job's done. They ended up connecting at one of the other churches. But I tried to be as clear as I could to say, hey, this is who we are. This is the sunset here. This is the vision. And if you are not on board with that, if that's not the sunset you see, we bless you we don't want you to be here and be disgruntled. We want you to love it here. We want you to be here and be all in. And so you just got to know. And if you don't know, then say, hey, give me 48 hours. I'm going to look on church websites, call pastor friends that I do know, and we're going to help you find at least one or two people to connect.